The sound of tearing silk echoed through the guest bedroom as I stood frozen in the doorway, watching my mother-in-law systematically destroy the wedding dress I had spent 18 months designing and saving for. What she did not know was that her violent tantrum would lead me to discover the hidden wardrobe containing evidence of her secret second marriage, complete with a pristine 1980s designer gown that would become my weapon of ultimate revenge. 3 days later, I walked down the aisle wearing her most carefully guarded secret while she watched in absolute horror from the front row. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The morning of what should have been the most beautiful day of my life began with the jarring sound of my phone buzzing at 5:47 a.m. The caller ID displayed my fiancé Michael's name, which immediately sent waves of anxiety through my chest because he never called this early unless something was seriously wrong. His voice sounded strained and apologetic as he explained that his mother, Patricia Whitman, had arrived at our venue 3 hours ahead of schedule and was demanding immediate access to the bridal preparation suite. She says she needs to inspect the setup and make sure everything meets family standards. Michael explained with the exhausted tone of someone who had been managing his mother's demanding personality his entire life. The venue coordinator is trying to handle it, but she's threatening to cancel our contract if they don't accommodate her requests immediately. Patricia Whitman had been a source of constant tension throughout our 2-year engagement, systematically undermining every decision I made regarding our wedding celebration. She questioned my choice of venue, criticized my menu selections, dismissed my floral arrangements as inadequate, and repeatedly suggested that her social connections could provide superior alternatives to every vendor I had carefully researched and selected. Her behavior reflected a woman who viewed my marriage to her son as a hostile takeover of her family rather than a celebration of love and commitment. The drive to Meadowbrook Estate took 45 minutes through winding country roads that normally filled me with anticipation and excitement about our upcoming ceremony. The venue represented everything Michael and I had dreamed of for our wedding day: a restored 19th-century mansion surrounded by manicured gardens, overlooking a pristine lake that reflected morning sunlight like scattered diamonds. We had booked Meadowbrook Estate 18 months in advance, securing the last available Saturday in October when the autumn foliage would provide the perfect backdrop for our outdoor ceremony. The financial investment in our wedding celebration represented significant sacrifice and careful planning on both our parts. Michael worked as a systems analyst for a regional technology firm, earning a modest but stable salary that covered our basic living expenses and allowed for limited recreational spending. My position as a graphic designer at a boutique marketing agency provided supplemental income that we had dedicated entirely to wedding expenses and future house down payment savings. The wedding dress that now hung in the bridal preparation suite represented the culmination of months of careful planning, creative collaboration, and financial sacrifice. Rather than purchasing an expensive designer gown from an exclusive bridal salon, I had chosen to work with Elena Vasquez, a talented local seamstress who specialized in custom wedding dress creation. Elena operated her business from a charming studio downtown, where she combined traditional tailoring techniques with contemporary design elements to create unique gowns that reflected each bride's individual style and personality. The design process had required multiple consultations, fabric selections, and fitting appointments that stretched across 6 months, as Elena meticulously crafted a dress that exceeded my highest expectations. The silhouette featured a fitted bodice with hand-sewn pearl detailing, flowing into an elegant A-line skirt constructed from layers of silk organza that created ethereal movement with every step. The chapel-length train incorporated delicate lace appliques that Elena had positioned to complement my height and create visual interest from every angle. The financial investment in the custom dress represented nearly 3 months of my salary, requiring careful budgeting and elimination of discretionary spending to accumulate the necessary funds. I had foregone vacation travel, restaurant dining, entertainment expenses, and clothing purchases throughout the previous year to prioritize this once-in-a-lifetime investment in the dress that would define my most important day. The parking area at Meadowbrook Estate showed signs of early morning activity as vendor trucks delivered final elements for our evening celebration. The catering staff was unloading equipment and ingredients for our cocktail reception and dinner service, while the florist arranged centerpieces and ceremony decorations according to the detailed plans we had finalized weeks earlier. The sight of these preparations should have filled me with joy and anticipation, but Patricia's unexpected presence had transformed excitement into apprehension about potential conflicts and disruptions. The venue coordinator, Sarah Mitchell, met me at the main entrance with an expression that immediately conveyed the stress and frustration she had been managing since Patricia's arrival. Sarah had handled hundreds of wedding celebrations during her 5 years at Meadowbrook Estate, developing expertise in managing demanding clients and complex family dynamics with professional grace and diplomatic skill. However, her demeanor suggested that Patricia represented a uniquely challenging situation that tested even her extensive experience. "I need to speak with you privately before you go upstairs," Sarah said quietly, guiding me toward the library where we could have a confidential conversation away from other vendors and staff members. "Mrs. Whitman has been here since 3 o'clock this morning, and she has made some very specific demands regarding the bridal suite setup and your preparation schedule." The library provided a peaceful sanctuary filled with antique furnishings and floor-to-ceiling bookshelves that created an atmosphere of calm sophistication. However, the gravity of Sarah's expression and the urgency in her voice made it impossible to appreciate the beautiful surroundings as she outlined the morning's developments and Patricia's increasingly unreasonable demands. She insists that the bridal suite arrangement does not meet her family's standards and requires immediate reorganization according to specifications she has provided, Sarah explained, producing a handwritten list that contained detailed instructions for furniture placement, lighting adjustments, and room temperature control. "She has also questioned the security measures for your dress and personal belongings, demanding additional storage options and access restrictions." The list revealed Patricia's intention to control every aspect of my wedding day preparation, treating the bridal suite as her personal domain rather than respecting my privacy and preferences. Her demands included repositioning mirrors to optimize lighting, rearranging seating to accommodate family members she planned to invite into the space, and establishing storage protocols that would give her access to my personal belongings throughout the preparation period. "The most concerning development occurred about an hour ago when she requested access to inspect your wedding dress personally," Sarah continued, her professional composure beginning to show signs of strain. She claimed that family tradition requires maternal approval of bridal attire and insisted that this inspection was necessary to prevent potential embarrassment during the ceremony. The request for dress inspection revealed Patricia's true intentions and confirmed my growing suspicions about her motivations for arriving early and demanding access to private preparation areas. Throughout our engagement, she had made numerous disparaging comments about my aesthetic choices, financial limitations, and cultural background that reflected deep-seated prejudice and disapproval of my relationship with Michael. The walk upstairs to the bridal preparation suite felt like ascending toward an inevitable confrontation that would define the tone for our entire wedding day. Each step on the elegant staircase brought me closer to whatever chaos Patricia had created during her unsupervised time in the space that should have been my peaceful sanctuary for final preparation and reflection. The hallway leading to the bridal suite was lined with portraits of previous brides who had celebrated their weddings at Meadowbrook Estate, their faces glowing with joy and anticipation that seemed to mock my current anxiety about the situation awaiting me behind the closed door. The beautiful surroundings that should have enhanced my excitement about the approaching ceremony instead served as a reminder of how Patricia's interference was poisoning what should have been the happiest day of my life. The sound that greeted me as I approached the bridal suite door was unmistakable and devastating, the distinctive ripping of fabric being torn apart with deliberate force. The noise sent immediate shockwaves through my nervous system as my mind processed the implications of what I was hearing. The only significant fabric in that room was my wedding dress, hanging carefully on the antique armoire where Sarah had positioned it according to my specific instructions. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob, part of me hoping that the sounds had been misinterpreted, and that some reasonable explanation would emerge for the disturbing noises coming from within the room. However, the sick feeling in my stomach told me exactly what I would find when I opened the door and confronted whatever destruction Patricia had unleashed in her quest to demonstrate control over my wedding day. The scene that greeted me as I pushed open the door exceeded my worst fears and shattered my remaining hope that this situation could be resolved peacefully. Patricia stood in the center of the room, surrounded by torn silk fabric, scattered pearl beading, and shredded lace appliques that had once formed the most beautiful dress I had ever owned. Her face showed no remorse or surprise at being discovered, only cold satisfaction at having destroyed something precious that represented months of planning, financial sacrifice, and emotional investment. This cheap imitation was completely inappropriate for a Whitman family wedding, Patricia announced with clinical detachment, continuing to tear pieces of fabric as she spoke. I have arranged for a proper dress to be delivered from Bergdorf Goodman within the hour. You should be grateful that someone with actual taste has intervened to prevent you from embarrassing my family with this homemade costume. The destruction was systematic and complete, revealing that Patricia had spent considerable time methodically dismantling every element of the dress with scissors she must have brought specifically for this purpose. The bodice had been separated from the skirt, the sleeves removed entirely, and the train cut into irregular pieces that lay scattered across the antique Persian rug like evidence of a violent crime against beauty and craftsmanship. Elena's months of careful work, the financial sacrifice I had made to afford custom creation, and the emotional significance of wearing a dress designed specifically for my marriage to Michael had been obliterated in a matter of minutes by a woman whose hatred for me exceeded any reasonable bounds of family conflict. The sight of my destroyed dress triggered a surge of rage and grief that left me temporarily speechless as I struggled to process the magnitude of this violation. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You have no right to destroy my property, I managed to say, my voice shaking with a combination of fury and devastation. This dress represented months of work and thousands of dollars that Michael and I saved specifically for this purchase. You have committed a crime against my personal property and violated my trust in the most fundamental way possible. Patricia's response revealed the depth of her calculation and the extent to which she had planned this attack on my dignity and happiness. The dress was clearly inferior quality that would have reflected poorly on our family's reputation, she replied with dismissive arrogance. I have taken responsibility for correcting your poor judgment and ensuring that this wedding maintains appropriate standards. The rage coursing through my veins demanded immediate action, but years of professional experience in client management had taught me the importance of strategic thinking even in emotionally charged situations. Rather than responding with the screaming confrontation that Patricia clearly expected and desired, I chose to channel my anger into systematic investigation of her actions and motivations. The guest bedroom where Patricia was staying during the weekend wedding celebration occupied the opposite end of the hallway from the bridal suite, positioned to provide privacy for family members while maintaining convenient access to common areas. Her insistence on arriving early and demanding specific room assignments now seemed calculated to provide opportunities for surveillance and interference with wedding preparations. The decision to search Patricia's belongings was motivated by intuition that her destructive behavior represented something deeper than simple disapproval of my aesthetic choices. The systematic nature of the dress destruction, combined with her confident assertion that she had arranged a replacement, suggested advanced planning that required investigation to fully understand. Patricia's luggage was arranged neatly throughout the guest bedroom, with the main suitcase positioned on the antique trunk at the foot of the four-poster bed. However, a smaller wardrobe case positioned in the corner of the room seemed oddly disproportionate to the length of her planned stay and was secured with a combination lock that suggested valuable or sensitive contents. The combination lock presented a challenge that required creative problem-solving and patience, as I attempted various numerical sequences that might reflect significant dates or personal information that Patricia would remember easily. After several unsuccessful attempts using Michael's birthday, wedding anniversary dates, and other family milestones, I tried the year 1987, which corresponded to a period that Patricia had always described vaguely as a difficult time in her personal history. The lock opened with a satisfying click that revealed carefully organized contents that immediately explained Patricia's secretive behavior and provided context for her systematic cruelty toward me. The wardrobe case contained a pristine wedding dress wrapped in acid-free tissue paper, along with photographs, legal documents, and personal correspondence that documented a secret second marriage that Patricia had concealed from her family for over 3 decades. The wedding dress was a stunning creation from the 1980s, featuring the sophisticated design elements and luxurious materials that characterized high-end bridal fashion from that era. The silhouette included dramatic shoulder details, a fitted bodice with intricate beading, and a full skirt constructed from layers of silk taffeta that created impressive volume and movement. The overall effect was elegant and timeless, representing the kind of investment in quality that transcended temporary fashion trends. The accompanying photographs revealed Patricia in the dress, standing beside a distinguished gentleman who was clearly not Michael's father, Thomas Whitman. The ceremony appeared to have taken place in an elegant church setting, with formal arrangements that suggested significant financial investment and social importance. The bride's expression showed genuine happiness and excitement that contrasted sharply with the cold calculation that characterized her current personality. The legal documents confirmed that Patricia had indeed married Robert Sterling in 1987, approximately 2 years after her divorce from Thomas Whitman became final. The marriage certificate, prenuptial agreement, and subsequent divorce papers revealed a relationship that lasted only 8 months, but resulted in significant financial benefits for Patricia through the divorce settlement. The correspondence included love letters between Patricia and Robert that revealed a passionate relationship and genuine emotional connection that challenged everything I understood about her capacity for love and vulnerability. The letters showed a woman who was capable of deep feeling and romantic expression, making her current cruelty toward me even more disturbing and inexplicable. Standing in Patricia's guest bedroom, surrounded by evidence of her deception and holding the physical proof of her hypocrisy, I felt something fundamental shift in my understanding of our relationship dynamic and my options for responding to her attack on my wedding day. The discovery of her secret marriage and hidden wedding dress provided an opportunity for justice that exceeded anything I could have imagined during the initial shock of finding my destroyed dress. The plan that began forming in my mind represented a strategic response that would address Patricia's cruelty while demonstrating the consequences of underestimating someone's intelligence and resourcefulness. Rather than allowing her destructive actions to ruin my wedding day, I would use her own secrets against her and transform this attack into an opportunity for empowerment and justice. The first step required careful documentation of my destroyed dress and Patricia's concealed belongings to establish evidence of both the crime she had committed and the secret she had hidden from her family. The photographs I took with my phone would provide proof of the systematic destruction, while the images of her hidden wedding dress and documents would support the revelation I was planning to make during our ceremony. The size of Patricia's hidden wedding dress appeared compatible with my measurements, suggesting that alterations would be minimal and could potentially be completed within the time remaining before our evening ceremony. The quality and condition of the dress indicated that it had been preserved with care and attention that reflected its emotional significance to Patricia, making its appropriation particularly meaningful as a form of poetic justice. The decision to wear Patricia's secret wedding dress represented more than simple revenge. It constituted a reclaiming of power and dignity that her destructive actions had attempted to strip away. By transforming her weapon of humiliation into my tool of empowerment, I would demonstrate that cruelty ultimately defeats itself when directed against someone with the intelligence and courage to fight back strategically. The timing of this revelation would be crucial to maximizing its impact while ensuring that our wedding celebration maintained its fundamental meaning as a celebration of love and commitment between Michael and myself. The disclosure needed to occur at a moment when Patricia's shock and embarrassment would be witnessed by family members and friends who could appreciate the justice of the situation. As I carefully photographed the evidence and began planning the logistics of my response to Patricia's attack, I felt the first surge of excitement about our wedding day that I had experienced since arriving at Meadowbrook Estate. The destruction of my original dress, while devastating, had revealed an opportunity for transformation that would define this celebration as a moment when justice prevailed over cruelty and intelligence triumphed over malice. The woman who emerged from that guest bedroom was fundamentally different from the one who had entered it 20 minutes earlier. The shock and grief of losing my original dress had been transformed into determination and strategic purpose that would drive the most satisfying revenge I had ever imagined. Patricia Whitman was about to learn that underestimating someone's capability for strategic thinking was a mistake with consequences she could never have anticipated. The remaining hours before our ceremony would require careful coordination and strategic execution to ensure that my plan succeeded while maintaining the dignity and beauty that our wedding celebration deserved. The discovery of Patricia's secret had provided both the means and the motivation for justice, but successful implementation would require allies, resources, and timing that honored both my desire for revenge and Michael's right to a wedding day that celebrated our love, rather than focusing solely on family conflict. Before I share what happened next, I want to thank you for joining me in this story about standing up for yourself when family members cross unforgivable lines. If you believe that people who destroy others, property, and happiness deserve to face consequences for their actions, please consider subscribing to hear how this situation resolved. Your support helps us share more stories about turning moments of devastation into opportunities for empowerment and justice. The path forward was clear, and the tools for justice were literally in my hands. Patricia Whitman had made the mistake of underestimating my intelligence, my resourcefulness, and my commitment to protecting the happiness that she had tried to destroy. The wedding day that she had attempted to ruin was about to become the stage for her most humiliating defeat, delivered by the woman she had dismissed as unworthy of her family's respect. The secret that Patricia had guarded for over 30 years was about to become the instrument of her downfall, worn by the daughter-in-law she had tried to humiliate. Justice was coming, and it would be dressed in silk taffeta with dramatic shoulder details that would ensure every guest remembered this wedding for exactly the right reasons. The evidence spread across Patricia's guest bedroom told a story that fundamentally challenged everything the Whitman family believed about their matriarch's past and moral authority. The carefully preserved wedding dress represented more than hidden history. It embodied decades of deception that had shaped Patricia's interactions with every family member who trusted her version of events. The legal documents revealed patterns that extended far beyond a simple secret marriage. Patricia's prenuptial agreement with Robert Sterling included clauses that protected substantial assets she had accumulated during her first marriage to Thomas Whitman. Assets that she had concealed from both husbands through sophisticated financial arrangements that demonstrated long-term strategic thinking. The divorce settlement from Robert Sterling provided Patricia with a significant financial windfall that explained her comfortable lifestyle and generous gifts to Michael throughout his childhood and young adulthood. The monthly payments she received from Sterling's estate had continued for over 3 decades, funded by investments and real estate holdings that generated substantial passive income streams. Patricia's financial deception extended to the present day through careful manipulation of family perceptions about her resources and spending capabilities. When she purchased expensive gifts for Michael, or contributed to family expenses, she consistently attributed her generosity to careful budgeting and Thomas Whitman's life insurance benefits, rather than acknowledging the Sterling settlement income that actually funded her comfortable lifestyle. The correspondence between Patricia and Robert Sterling revealed emotional dimensions that contradicted her public persona as a woman devoted exclusively to her first marriage and subsequent widowhood. The love letters documented passionate romance and genuine emotional connection that had motivated Patricia to pursue divorce from Thomas Whitman despite social stigma and family opposition. Robert Sterling emerged from the documentation as a sophisticated businessman with extensive cultural interests and international travel experience, who had introduced Patricia to art collecting, fine dining, and luxury travel that expanded her horizons beyond the conventional social expectations of her generation. Their relationship had transformed her from a traditional suburban housewife into a worldly woman who appreciated quality and refinement. The photographs from their European honeymoon showed Patricia experiencing joy and freedom that contrasted sharply with the controlled and calculating personality that characterized her current behavior. The images captured genuine laughter, spontaneous affection, and adventurous spirit that suggested capabilities for happiness that she had systematically suppressed in subsequent relationships. The timeline revealed that Patricia's marriage to Robert Sterling had overlapped with Michael's early childhood, meaning that her secret husband had been present during family gatherings and holiday celebrations that Michael remembered as exclusively involving his biological parents. The deception required extensive coordination and planning that demonstrated Patricia's capacity for systematic manipulation across multiple relationships simultaneously. The wedding dress itself represented the pinnacle of 1980s bridal fashion, created by a renowned designer whose work commanded premium prices in exclusive boutiques. The construction quality exceeded contemporary standards, featuring hand-sewn beading, imported silk fabrics, and structural elements that supported the dramatic silhouette while ensuring comfort and movement for extended wear. The preservation techniques that Patricia had employed to maintain the dress demonstrated emotional attachment and future planning that suggested she had never fully processed the end of her relationship with Robert Sterling. The acid-free tissue paper, climate-controlled storage, and regular inspection schedule indicated that she maintained hope for wearing the dress again or preserving it for significant future occasions. The combination lock securing the wardrobe case had been set to 1987, the year of her marriage to Robert Sterling, rather than any date associated with her relationship with Thomas Whitman or Michael's birth. The numerical choice revealed where Patricia's emotional priorities remained focused, despite decades of presenting herself as devoted to her first family's memory and interests. The guest bedroom where Patricia had chosen to store these sensitive materials was located directly across the hallway from the bridal suite, suggesting that she had deliberately positioned herself to monitor my wedding preparations while maintaining access to reminders of her own secret romantic history. The proximity was calculated rather than coincidental. Patricia's systematic destruction of my wedding dress took on additional meaning when viewed through the lens of her preserved dress and hidden romantic history. Her attack represented projection of her own guilt and regret about concealed relationships onto my honest and transparent engagement with Michael. The financial resources that Patricia had used to purchase expensive replacement dresses and control wedding planning decisions originated from her sterling settlement, rather than the modest widow's budget she claimed to maintain. Her interventions were funded by deception while being presented as generous family support. The family dynamics that had shaped Michael's childhood were fundamentally different from the narrative that Patricia had constructed about devoted single parenthood and financial sacrifice. Robert Sterling's presence and financial support had provided stability and resources that Patricia attributed to her own capabilities while concealing the actual sources of family security. The education expenses that Patricia had covered for Michael's private schooling and college tuition had been funded by Sterling's settlement income, rather than the life insurance benefits and careful savings that she claimed as the source of her generosity. Her financial contributions were built on deception, while being presented as maternal devotion. The real estate investments that provided Patricia with her comfortable retirement income had been guided by Robert Sterling's business expertise and funded through their joint financial planning, rather than the individual financial management skills she claimed to possess. Her current security was built on partnerships she refused to acknowledge. The social connections that Patricia leveraged for family benefits and business opportunities had been developed through Robert Sterling's professional network rather than her individual relationship building. Her influence and access were inherited rather than earned through personal capability. The cultural sophistication that Patricia displayed through art appreciation, fine dining preferences, and travel experiences had been acquired during her marriage to Robert Sterling, rather than developed through independent exploration and education. Her refined tastes were adopted rather than authentic personal development. The confidence and authority that Patricia projected in family situations were supported by financial security and social connections that originated from her secret marriage, rather than the self-reliance and independence she claimed as personal characteristics. Her leadership was built on concealed advantages. The criticism that Patricia directed toward my aesthetic choices and financial limitations was hypocritical, given her own dependence on concealed resources and borrowed sophistication. Her standards for family behavior were based on advantages she refused to acknowledge rather than principles she had developed through genuine experience. The wedding planning interference that Patricia had justified as family tradition and maternal responsibility was actually motivated by guilt about her own deception and desire to control narratives that might reveal inconsistencies in her constructed identity. Her involvement was self-protection rather than family support. The destruction of my wedding dress represented an attack on authenticity and transparency that threatened Patricia's carefully maintained facade of moral authority and financial independence. My honest approach to wedding planning challenged the deception that had defined her family relationships for 3 decades. The revelation potential that existed within Patricia's concealed history provided leverage that could transform the power dynamics of our relationship and establish accountability for her destructive behavior. The evidence created opportunities for justice that extended beyond simple revenge into systemic change for family interactions. The strategic planning required for effective utilization of this information demanded careful consideration of timing, audience, and objectives that would maximize impact while maintaining dignity and protecting Michael's emotional well-being throughout the revelation process. The approach needed to be surgical rather than explosive. The wedding ceremony context provided unique opportunities for dramatic revelation that would ensure maximum witness participation while creating permanent documentation of Patricia's exposure and accountability. The setting would transform her weapon of humiliation into the stage for her defeat. The family relationships that would be affected by this revelation included not only Patricia and Michael, but also extended family members who had based their understanding of family history on Patricia's manipulated narratives. The truth would liberate multiple relationships from deception. The financial implications of revealing Patricia's sterling settlement income would impact family expectations and planning for inheritance, support, and shared expenses that had been based on false assumptions about her resources and obligations. The transparency would create more honest relationship foundations. The emotional consequences for Michael would include processing betrayal about his childhood experiences and family history, while simultaneously managing the wedding day stress and relationship conflicts that Patricia's exposure would inevitably create. The situation required careful handling to protect his well-being. The social implications within the Whitman family's community would include embarrassment about decades of deception and questions about other aspects of Patricia's public persona that might require examination and verification. The revelation would have ripple effects beyond immediate family relationships. The psychological profile that emerged from Patricia's documented behavior revealed a woman who had constructed elaborate deceptions to maintain control and advantage, while avoiding accountability for her choices and their consequences. Her pattern of manipulation was systematic and long-term. The evidence preservation requirements included securing the original documents, creating backup copies, and documenting the chain of custody to ensure that Patricia could not destroy or manipulate the materials once her secret was revealed. The information needed protection to maintain its evidentiary value. The legal considerations surrounding Patricia's destruction of my wedding dress included criminal charges for destruction of property, civil liability for replacement costs, and potential implications for the wedding ceremony schedule if legal proceedings interfered with the celebration timing. The response needed to balance justice with practical considerations. The venue coordination required for implementing my response plan included securing cooperation from Meadowbrook Estate staff, arranging for necessary alterations to Patricia's dress, and ensuring that the ceremony schedule could accommodate the additional drama without compromising the essential elements of our celebration. The documentation process that I initiated in Patricia's guest bedroom included photographing all evidence, creating detailed inventories of materials, and establishing timelines that connected her historical deception to her current destructive behavior. The record-keeping needed to be comprehensive and accurate. The emotional transformation that I experienced while discovering Patricia's secrets shifted my perspective from victimhood to empowerment. As I recognized that her attack on my wedding dress was motivated by her own guilt and insecurity, rather than legitimate criticism of my choices or character. The strategic advantages that this discovery provided included not only the means for immediate justice, but also long-term leverage for establishing healthy boundaries and preventing future manipulation attempts within family relationships. The information represented permanent protection against Patricia's controlling behavior. The time constraints that governed my response planning required efficient decision-making and rapid implementation, while maintaining attention to detail and quality that would ensure successful execution of my justice plan within the limited hours remaining before our ceremony. The allies that I would need to recruit for effective implementation included Michael, venue staff, and potentially other family members who could provide support and assistance while maintaining confidentiality until the appropriate moment for revelation arrived. The transformation of devastating betrayal into strategic opportunity represented a fundamental shift in my approach to conflict resolution and personal empowerment that would influence how I handled challenges and adversity throughout my future life and relationships. Patricia's secret wedding dress would become my instrument of justice, transforming her most carefully guarded shame into my moment of triumph, while demonstrating that authenticity ultimately defeats deception when supported by courage and strategic thinking. The careful orchestration required to maintain Patricia's elaborate deception while systematically undermining my relationship with Michael had demanded years of calculated manipulation that revealed her sophisticated understanding of family psychology and emotional control mechanisms. The discovery of her secret marriage provided context for behavior patterns that had seemed inexplicably cruel but now revealed themselves as strategic deflection from her own vulnerabilities and shame. The morning routine that Patricia had established during her extended visits to our home reflected military precision in gathering intelligence about our relationship dynamics, financial circumstances, and future planning discussions that she could later use to create discord and maintain her position of influence over Michael's decision-making processes. Her early rising habits positioned her to overhear private conversations and monitor our communications before we became fully aware of her surveillance activities. The breakfast preparations that Patricia insisted on handling during family visits served multiple purposes beyond apparent hospitality, creating opportunities to control conversation topics, introduce subtle criticisms of my domestic capabilities, and establish herself as the primary caretaker whose standards I could never hope to match. The kitchen became her command center for psychological warfare, disguised as maternal affection. The menu selections that Patricia prepared reflected deliberate choices designed to highlight cultural differences between her refined tastes and my family's more modest background, using food as a weapon to emphasize social disparities while maintaining plausible deniability about her discriminatory intentions. Each meal became a subtle reminder of hierarchy and belonging that reinforced her messages about appropriate family boundaries. The table settings that accompanied Patricia's elaborate presentations included heirloom china, crystal glassware, and silver flatware that had belonged to her grandmother, creating visual reminders of family heritage and tradition that excluded me from generational continuity while emphasizing my outsider status within the Whitman lineage. The formal presentations were intimidation tactics disguised as family pride. The conversation management techniques that Patricia employed during family meals demonstrated sophisticated manipulation skills, as she guided discussions toward topics that would reveal information about our relationship challenges, financial concerns, and future planning disagreements that she could later exploit to create additional conflict. Her questioning appeared casual but followed deliberate patterns designed to gather strategic intelligence. The gift-giving occasions that punctuated our relationship provided Patricia with opportunities to demonstrate superior taste and financial resources while simultaneously highlighting my limitations and different cultural approaches to celebration and family obligation. Her generosity served as a weapon that created debt and obligation while reinforcing messages about inadequacy and dependence. The holiday traditions that Patricia defended with fierce determination reflected her broader strategy of controlling family narratives and maintaining exclusive authority over meaningful celebrations and memories that connected Michael to his childhood experiences. Any suggestion of new traditions or modifications was met with emotional manipulation about honoring family legacy and respecting deceased relatives. The home decoration preferences that Patricia promoted during her visits included criticism of our furniture choices, artwork selections, and organizational systems that she claimed reflected poor judgment and lack of sophistication. Her suggestions for improvement always involved expensive purchases that exceeded our budget while implying that financial limitations revealed character deficiencies rather than practical circumstances. The social events that Patricia organized required specific dress codes, conversation topics, and behavioral expectations that created constant anxiety about meeting unstated standards that seemed to change based on her mood and desire to maintain control over family interactions. The gatherings became performance evaluations rather than genuine social connections. The relationship advice that Patricia offered regarding my marriage to Michael consistently undermined my confidence while positioning herself as the ultimate authority on his needs, preferences, and expectations. Her counsel created doubt about my understanding of my own husband, while reinforcing her irreplaceable role as his primary emotional support system. The financial discussions that Patricia initiated during family visits revealed her sophisticated understanding of our budget constraints and spending priorities, information she gathered through careful observation and strategic questioning that appeared helpful but actually provided ammunition for future manipulation and control efforts. Her financial advice always included implicit criticism of our choices and capabilities. The career guidance that Patricia provided positioned her professional connections and social influence as essential resources for our advancement, while simultaneously undermining my independent achievements and professional relationships. Her offers of assistance came with strings attached that would increase our dependence on her resources and approval. The childcare opinions that Patricia expressed despite our decision to delay starting a family reflected her determination to control all aspects of our relationship timeline and major life decisions. Her pressure regarding grandchildren served multiple purposes, including creating additional conflict between Michael and myself, while positioning her as the injured party whose reasonable expectations were being frustrated by my selfishness. The health and wellness advice that Patricia dispensed during family visits included criticism of my exercise habits, dietary choices, and stress management techniques that she claimed were inadequate for supporting a successful marriage and family life. Her concern about my well-being was actually surveillance and control disguised as maternal care. The household management standards that Patricia promoted required levels of organization, cleanliness, and presentation that exceeded practical necessity, while creating constant opportunities for criticism and correction. Her domestic advice was designed to establish impossible standards that would guarantee failure and justify ongoing intervention in our private life. The communication patterns that Patricia had established with Michael included regular phone calls, text messages, and email exchanges that maintained her influence over his thinking and decision-making, while creating opportunities to monitor our relationship satisfaction and identify potential leverage points for future manipulation. Her constant contact was surveillance rather than genuine affection. The boundary violations that characterized Patricia's behavior extended beyond emotional manipulation into physical invasion of our privacy through examination of personal belongings, review of financial documents, and inspection of our living spaces for evidence of problems or secrets that could be exploited for control purposes. Her violations were systematic and deliberate, rather than accidental or well-intentioned. The emergency situations that Patricia created through manufactured health scares, financial crises, and social obligations required immediate attention and resources that disrupted our plans and priorities, while reinforcing her centrality to family functioning. Her emergencies were control mechanisms rather than genuine problems requiring assistance. The comparison techniques that Patricia employed positioned other couples, particularly those from her social circle, as superior examples of proper relationship management, financial planning, and family development that highlighted our inadequacies while providing specific targets for improvement that aligned with her preferences and values. Her comparisons were weapons rather than helpful guidance. The memory management strategies that Patricia used included selective recollection of family history, strategic omission of inconvenient facts, and creative reinterpretation of past events that supported her current narratives while undermining alternative perspectives that might challenge her authority or reveal her own inconsistencies and failures. The emotional blackmail techniques that Patricia employed included threats of withdrawal, implications of health consequences from stress, and suggestions that family relationships would suffer permanent damage if her preferences were not accommodated. Her emotional manipulation was calculated rather than genuine expression of hurt or concern. The isolation tactics that Patricia implemented included criticism of my friends and family members, scheduling conflicts that prevented our attendance at events that might strengthen my independent relationships, and subtle discouragement of activities that provided me with emotional support and validation outside the Whitman family sphere. The information control methods that Patricia practiced included monitoring our social media activities, questioning mutual friends about our relationship status, and gathering intelligence from extended family members about our private conversations and plans. Her surveillance network was extensive and sophisticated. The reputation management efforts that Patricia pursued included careful cultivation of her image as a devoted mother and grandmother, whose only concern was family well-being, positioning any criticism of her behavior as evidence of my ungrateful attitude and inability to appreciate her sacrifices and contributions to our relationship success. The alliance-building strategies that Patricia employed included recruitment of extended family members, family friends, and community connections who would support her perspective during conflicts, while viewing me as the source of family discord and dysfunction. Her network provided validation and reinforcement for her manipulative behavior. The documentation habits that Patricia maintained included photographs, correspondence, and records of family interactions that supported her version of events, while omitting evidence of her controlling and manipulative behavior. Her record-keeping was selective and strategic rather than comprehensive and accurate. The crisis escalation patterns that Patricia followed included increasing intensity of interference and manipulation whenever our relationship showed signs of independence or happiness that threatened her control and influence. Her attacks were most severe when we demonstrated growth and success that reduced our dependence on her involvement. The punishment mechanisms that Patricia implemented for resistance to her control included withdrawal of financial support, social isolation within family circles, and emotional manipulation that created guilt and anxiety about disappointing her and damaging family relationships. Her consequences were designed to enforce compliance rather than encourage healthy boundaries. The reward systems that Patricia employed for compliance with her expectations included financial gifts, social recognition, and emotional approval that created temporary relief from her criticism, while reinforcing dependence on her validation and support. Her positive reinforcement was conditional and manipulative, rather than genuine appreciation. The testing behaviors that Patricia exhibited included deliberate creation of conflicts and challenges that measured our commitment to her priorities over our independent judgment and relationship autonomy. Her tests were designed to ensure ongoing control rather than assess our actual capabilities or character. The narrative construction techniques that Patricia used included careful framing of family stories, selective emphasis on particular themes and values, and strategic omission of details that might challenge her moral authority or reveal the true sources of her advantages and influence within family relationships. The seasonal intensification patterns that Patricia followed included increased interference during significant occasions such as holidays, anniversaries, and milestone events, when her control was most important for maintaining family traditions and ensuring her central role in meaningful celebrations and memories. The wedding planning interference that had characterized the previous 18 months represented the culmination of Patricia's systematic campaign to establish dominance over our relationship while undermining my confidence and autonomy. Her destructive behavior was the logical extension of years of calculated manipulation, rather than an isolated incident of poor judgment. The dress destruction incident provided definitive evidence of Patricia's true character and intentions, while simultaneously revealing the hypocrisy and deception that had enabled her manipulative behavior throughout our relationship. Her attack represented both her most extreme violation and her fatal mistake that would expose her secrets and end her reign of psychological terrorism. The transformation opportunity that emerged from discovering Patricia's hidden history shifted the power dynamic from her advantage to mine, while providing the tools and motivation necessary for establishing justice and accountability that would protect future generations from her manipulative influence and control. The capabilities that I had developed throughout my career as a graphic designer extended far beyond aesthetic considerations into strategic problem-solving methodologies that would prove essential for navigating the complex challenge that Patricia's destructive behavior had created. The analytical frameworks that governed my professional approach to client challenges provided systematic approaches to information gathering, strategic planning, and implementation execution that were directly applicable to personal conflict resolution. The project management expertise that I had acquired through handling multiple client accounts simultaneously had developed organizational systems and timeline management capabilities that enabled comprehensive preparation and coordination across multiple variables and stakeholders. The wedding planning process had already demonstrated these skills through successful vendor coordination, budget optimization, and quality control procedures that exceeded industry standards. The research methodologies that defined my approach to understanding client industries and competitive landscapes provided sophisticated techniques for information synthesis and strategic analysis that were perfectly suited to investigating Patricia's background and developing comprehensive responses to her manipulative behavior. The investigative capabilities that supported my professional success would now serve personal justice objectives. The communication strategies that I employed in client relationships included diplomatic conflict resolution, strategic message development, and stakeholder management techniques that maintain professional relationships while achieving specific objectives. These skills would prove invaluable for managing family dynamics throughout the revelation process, while protecting Michael's emotional well-being and preserving important relationships. The creative problem-solving approaches that characterized my design work included innovative resource utilization, aesthetic optimization within budget constraints, and transformation of limitations into competitive advantages. The challenge of converting Patricia's attack into opportunity for empowerment would require similar creative thinking and strategic vision. The attention to detail that distinguished my professional deliverables from standard industry offerings included comprehensive quality control procedures, systematic documentation practices, and perfectionist standards that ensured client satisfaction and referral generation. These same standards would govern my response to Patricia's behavior to ensure maximum impact and permanent resolution. The emotional intelligence capabilities that supported my client relationship management included sophisticated understanding of personality dynamics, motivation assessment, and behavioral prediction that enhanced my effectiveness in complex interpersonal situations. The insights that enabled professional success would provide advantages in personal conflict navigation. The cultural competency skills that I had developed through diverse client relationships included sensitivity to different value systems, communication preferences, and social expectations that enhanced my ability to navigate complex family dynamics and generational differences. These capabilities would prove essential for managing the cross-cultural implications of revealing Patricia's deception. The financial literacy that governed my personal and professional budget management included investment analysis, cost-benefit evaluation, and resource optimization strategies that maximized value and minimized risk across multiple variables. The financial implications of Patricia's sterling settlement revelation would require sophisticated analysis and strategic planning. The networking capabilities that supported my business development efforts included relationship building, trust establishment, and influence development that created sustainable professional advantages and growth opportunities. The social dynamics that would surround Patricia's exposure would require careful relationship management and strategic alliance building. The time management systems that enabled my productivity across multiple demanding projects included priority assessment, efficiency optimization, and deadline management that consistently delivered superior results within compressed timelines. The wedding day timeline would require exceptional coordination and execution precision to achieve justice objectives while maintaining celebration quality. The stress management techniques that sustained my performance during high-pressure situations included emotional regulation, perspective maintenance, and resilience building that prevented anxiety and decision-making impairment during critical moments. The emotional intensity of confronting Patricia's betrayal would demand sophisticated coping strategies and mental preparation. The technology proficiency that enhanced my professional capabilities included advanced software utilization, information system management, and digital communication optimization that provided efficiency advantages and quality enhancements. The documentation and evidence preservation requirements would benefit from sophisticated digital organization and security protocols. The presentation skills that enabled my client communication success included visual storytelling, audience engagement, and persuasive argumentation that achieved specific outcomes through strategic information delivery. The revelation of Patricia's secrets would require masterful presentation timing and audience management to maximize impact while maintaining dignity. The negotiation capabilities that supported my vendor relationship management included strategic positioning, leverage identification, and outcome optimization that achieved superior terms and conditions through careful preparation and tactical execution. The power dynamics that would emerge from exposing Patricia's deception would require sophisticated negotiation approaches. The leadership qualities that had emerged through my professional development included team coordination, vision communication, and decision-making authority that inspired confidence and achieved collective objectives. The transformation from victim to empowered protagonist would require leadership capabilities that influenced family dynamics and established new relationship standards. The adaptability skills that enabled my success across diverse client industries included rapid learning, strategic flexibility, and innovative approach development that maintained effectiveness despite changing circumstances and unexpected challenges. The dynamic nature of wedding day crisis management would demand exceptional adaptability and real-time strategic adjustment. The quality assurance methodologies that guaranteed my professional deliverable standards included systematic review processes, accuracy verification, and continuous improvement practices that maintained excellence and client satisfaction. The justice plan that I was developing would require similar quality standards to ensure successful execution and permanent impact. The brand management expertise that supported my professional reputation included strategic positioning, message consistency, and relationship cultivation that created sustainable competitive advantages and market recognition. The transformation of my personal narrative from victim to victor would require sophisticated brand management and reputation development. The competitive analysis capabilities that informed my strategic planning included market research, opportunity identification, and advantage development that positioned clients for success against superior competitors. The challenge of overcoming Patricia's established family influence and social positioning would require similar competitive strategy development. The crisis management experience that I had gained through challenging client situations included rapid response development, damage control implementation, and reputation protection that minimized negative consequences while preserving important relationships. The potential fallout from exposing Patricia's secrets would require comprehensive crisis management planning. The innovation methodologies that distinguished my creative work included conventional boundary challenges, resource limitation, transcendence, and solution development that exceeded client expectations through original thinking and strategic risk-taking. The transformation of devastating betrayal into empowerment opportunity would require similar innovative approaches. The customer service excellence that characterized my client relationships included expectation management, satisfaction optimization, and loyalty development that created sustainable business advantages through superior experience delivery. The family relationship management that would follow Patricia's exposure would require similar service excellence and relationship optimization. The professional development commitment that sustained my career advancement included continuous learning, skill enhancement, and capability expansion that maintained competitiveness and growth trajectory. The personal growth that would result from successfully managing this crisis would provide similar advancement and empowerment benefits. The ethical framework that governed my professional decision-making included integrity maintenance, stakeholder consideration, and responsibility acceptance that ensured sustainable practices and moral authority. The justice approach that I was developing would maintain similar ethical standards while achieving accountability and protection objectives. The collaboration skills that enabled my team project success included communication facilitation, conflict resolution, and consensus building that achieved shared objectives through cooperative effort. The family healing process that would follow Patricia's exposure would require similar collaboration capabilities and relationship rebuilding expertise. The mentorship experience that I had provided to junior colleagues included knowledge transfer, skill development support, and career guidance that enhanced organizational capabilities and individual growth. The example that my response to Patricia's behavior would provide for other family members facing similar challenges would require similar mentorship qualities and wisdom sharing. The entrepreneurial thinking that supported my independent consulting projects included opportunity recognition, resource optimization, and value creation that generated superior outcomes through innovative approaches and strategic risk management. The transformation of personal crisis into empowerment opportunity would require similar entrepreneurial vision and execution capabilities. The cultural bridge building that characterized my diverse client relationships included communication translation, expectation alignment, and relationship facilitation that overcame differences and achieved mutual understanding. The generational and cultural dynamics within the Whitman family would require similar bridge-building capabilities and diplomatic skills. The performance measurement systems that evaluated my professional effectiveness included objective assessment, continuous monitoring, and improvement identification that maintained excellence standards and growth trajectory. The success evaluation for my response to Patricia's behavior would require similar measurement frameworks and accountability systems. The intellectual property protection that safeguarded my creative work included documentation practices, legal compliance, and strategic disclosure that preserved competitive advantages while enabling appropriate sharing and collaboration. The evidence preservation and strategic revelation of Patricia's secrets would require similar intellectual property management and protection strategies. The risk assessment capabilities that informed my strategic planning included probability evaluation, impact analysis, and mitigation strategy development that minimized negative outcomes while maximizing opportunity realization. The potential consequences of exposing Patricia's deception would require comprehensive risk assessment and management planning. The resource allocation expertise that optimized my project management included priority determination, efficiency maximization, and outcome optimization that achieved superior results within constraint limitations. The wedding day execution of justice plans would require similar resource allocation and optimization capabilities. The stakeholder engagement strategies that supported my business development included relationship mapping, influence assessment, and communication optimization that achieved specific objectives through strategic interaction and value demonstration. The family dynamics that would surround Patricia's exposure would require sophisticated stakeholder engagement and relationship management. The change management experience that guided my client transformation projects included resistance anticipation, adoption facilitation, and success measurement that achieved sustainable improvements through systematic implementation and support. The family relationship changes that would result from Patricia's exposure would require similar change management expertise and facilitation capabilities. The personal brand that I had developed through professional excellence included reputation establishment, trust building, and credibility demonstration that created sustainable advantages and growth opportunities. The transformation from manipulation victim to empowered family member would require similar brand development and positioning strategies. The legacy building that would result from successfully managing this crisis included example setting, wisdom sharing, and empowerment demonstration that would benefit future generations and inspire others facing similar challenges. The long-term impact of standing up to Patricia's manipulation would extend far beyond immediate justice to create lasting positive change for family dynamics and relationship standards. The intricate web of personal and professional connections that surrounded our family situation revealed complex dynamics that would significantly influence how Patricia's exposure unfolded and which allies would emerge to support justice versus maintaining comfortable deceptions. Understanding these relationship patterns became essential for developing a strategic approach that would maximize positive outcomes while minimizing collateral damage to innocent family members who had been manipulated by Patricia's carefully constructed narratives. Michael's relationship with his mother represented the most complex dynamic within this network, shaped by 32 years of emotional manipulation disguised as devoted maternal care. His perspective on Patricia's behavior had been systematically distorted through childhood conditioning that positioned her controlling actions as expressions of love and concern rather than mechanisms for maintaining psychological dominance. The revelation of her secret marriage and systematic deception would fundamentally challenge his understanding of his own family history and childhood experiences. The bond between Michael and his father Thomas had been deliberately undermined by Patricia through subtle criticism and negative interpretation of their interactions during his formative years. Patricia had consistently positioned herself as the more devoted parent, while casting Thomas as emotionally distant and career-focused, creating loyalty conflicts that served her control objectives. The discovery that she had been simultaneously married to Robert Sterling during these crucial years would reframe these childhood memories and potentially restore appreciation for his father's genuine contributions. Thomas Whitman's current relationship with Patricia maintained surface-level civility based on shared history and their mutual commitment to Michael's well-being, but underlying tensions suggested awareness of deeper problems that he had chosen to overlook rather than confront directly. His diplomatic approach to family interactions reflected either remarkable maturity or strategic avoidance of conflicts that might reveal uncomfortable truths about their marriage and divorce. The extended Whitman family network included Patricia's sister Margaret, her brother-in-law David, and their adult children who had observed our relationship development with varying degrees of approval and concern. Margaret had consistently supported Patricia's version of family events, while occasionally expressing private reservations about her sister's intensity and controlling behavior during family gatherings. Her position as Patricia's primary confidant made her either a valuable ally or formidable opponent, depending on how she processed revelations about the secret marriage. David's perspective on family dynamics reflected his outsider status as someone who had married into the Whitman family during his youth and maintained diplomatic neutrality during conflicts, while privately supporting his wife's concerns about Patricia's behavior. His business background in financial planning might provide valuable insights into the implications of Patricia's sterling settlement income and the deception surrounding her true financial circumstances. The younger generation within the extended family included Margaret and David's children, Sarah and Jonathan, who represented potential allies based on their generational perspectives and reduced investment in maintaining family mythology that served previous generations, comfort, and convenience. Their relationships with me had developed independently of Patricia's influence, creating foundation for support that might prove crucial during the revelation process. Michael's childhood friends who had maintained contact through adulthood possessed valuable perspectives on family dynamics during his formative years, including observations about Patricia's behavior patterns and Robert Sterling's presence during family events that they might not have previously connected to romantic involvement. These witnesses could provide corroboration for the timeline and relationship details revealed through the documents I had discovered. The professional connections that both Michael and I had developed through our respective careers represented potential sources of moral support and practical advice for managing the complex personal and legal implications of Patricia's exposure. Colleagues who had observed her behavior during work-related social events might contribute additional evidence or perspective that supported accountability efforts. Elena Vasquez, the seamstress who had created my destroyed wedding dress, represented a crucial relationship that would require careful management during the crisis resolution. Her emotional investment in the custom creation and professional reputation concerns about the destruction would influence her willingness to support legal action or public exposure of Patricia's behavior. Her expertise in vintage wedding dress restoration might prove essential for adapting Patricia's secret dress to my measurements within the compressed timeline. The vendor relationships that we had established for our wedding celebration included coordinators, photographers, florists, and musicians who possessed varying degrees of discretion and professional judgment regarding family conflicts and unusual circumstances. Their cooperation would be essential for implementing any dramatic revelation during the ceremony, while maintaining the dignity and beauty that our celebration deserved. Sarah Mitchell, the Meadowbrook Estate Coordinator, had demonstrated exceptional professionalism and crisis management capabilities during the morning's challenges with Patricia's demands and destructive behavior. Her experience with difficult family dynamics and her commitment to client satisfaction positioned her as a valuable ally for coordinating complex logistics, while maintaining confidentiality about sensitive developments. The social circle that Patricia had cultivated through bridge club participation, charity work, and community involvement represented potential sources of embarrassment and accountability pressure once her deception became public knowledge. These relationships were built on the persona she had constructed as a devoted widow and moral authority, making exposure particularly damaging to her social standing and community influence. Robert Sterling's surviving family members and business associates, represented unknown variables in the revelation equation, potentially providing additional perspective on the relationship timeline, or expressing interest in reconnecting with Patricia once her concealment was exposed. The documentation suggested that Sterling had maintained significant social and professional connections that might influence public reaction to the disclosure. The legal community connections that might become relevant included family attorneys, estate planning specialists, and divorce lawyers who could provide guidance about the implications of revealing Patricia's financial deception and the potential consequences for family financial planning and inheritance expectations. Professional legal counsel would be essential for protecting our interests while pursuing accountability. The religious community relationships that influenced family expectations about marriage, forgiveness, and conflict resolution represented complex dynamics that would require careful navigation during the revelation process. Patricia's presentation of herself as a devout widow and moral exemplar within church circles created additional layers of hypocrisy that exposure would reveal while potentially generating support for accountability efforts. The neighborhood connections that provided social context for Patricia's daily life included witnesses to her lifestyle and spending patterns that might validate suspicions about her true financial circumstances once the Sterling settlement was revealed. These relationships could provide valuable perspectives on consistency between her public persona and private behavior. The generational differences between Patricia's contemporaries and younger family members would influence reactions to her secret marriage revelation, with older generations potentially showing more understanding for the social pressures that motivated concealment, while younger family members might express greater outrage about the deception and manipulation involved. The cultural dynamics within our relationship network reflected different approaches to family loyalty, conflict resolution, and accountability that would influence alliance formation and support patterns during the revelation aftermath. Understanding these underlying value differences would be crucial for predicting reactions and building effective coalitions. The professional reputation implications for Patricia within her various community roles would depend on the specific relationships and organizations where her moral authority and social standing provided influence and recognition. The extent of damage to these positions would depend on how the revelation was managed and which aspects of her deception received public attention. The financial advisor relationships that Patricia had maintained to manage her Sterling settlement income represented potential sources of verification for the scope and duration of her deception, while providing professional assessment of the implications for family financial planning and expectations about her resources and obligations. The historical relationships that connected Patricia to both her legitimate and secret marriages included witnesses, service providers, and community members who might possess additional perspective on the timeline and circumstances surrounding her deception. These connections could provide valuable corroboration or additional evidence supporting accountability efforts. The therapeutic relationships that might become necessary for family healing after the revelation would require professionals who specialized in complex family dynamics, betrayal trauma, and relationship reconstruction following significant deception and manipulation. The mental health implications for all involved parties would require sensitive and skilled professional support. The mentorship relationships that I had developed through professional networks represented potential sources of guidance and support for managing the complex ethical and strategic considerations involved in exposing family deception, while maintaining personal integrity and professional reputation during potentially difficult circumstances. The friendship networks that both Michael and I had cultivated independently of family influence provided crucial sources of emotional support and objective perspective that would prove invaluable during the challenging period following Patricia's exposure. These relationships offered safe spaces for processing complex emotions and developing healthy responses to family crisis. The business relationships that connected to Patricia's social and financial activities might provide additional evidence of her deception, while offering opportunities for accountability through professional and social consequences that extended beyond immediate family dynamics. The interconnected nature of community relationships could amplify the impact of revelation beyond private family matters. The educational connections that linked family members to shared institutions and experiences represented potential sources of support and understanding, while providing common ground for processing the implications of Patricia's deception within familiar contexts that offered stability during uncertain times. The healthcare relationships that served family members would require consideration regarding confidentiality, professional obligations, and potential impacts of stress and emotional trauma resulting from the revelation process. Medical professionals might provide valuable guidance for managing the health implications of family crisis while maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. The employment connections that influenced career security and professional reputation for all involved parties required careful consideration regarding potential spillover effects from family conflicts and public exposure of deception and manipulation that might impact workplace relationships and advancement opportunities. The community service relationships that Patricia had cultivated through volunteer work and charitable activities represented additional areas where her moral authority and social influence would be challenged by revelation of her deception, potentially creating accountability pressures through multiple social channels simultaneously. The communication patterns that had developed within this relationship network reflected Patricia's systematic information control and manipulation efforts, requiring strategic reconstruction of honest information sharing and transparent relationship building once her deception was exposed and accountability measures were implemented. The destruction of my wedding dress represented far more than an isolated incident of poor judgment or emotional volatility. Patricia's behavior reflected deeply embedded systematic problems within family structures that enabled and rewarded manipulation while punishing authenticity and healthy boundary establishment. Understanding these larger patterns became essential for developing comprehensive solutions that would address root causes, rather than merely responding to surface symptoms of dysfunction. The generational transmission of manipulation techniques within the Whitman family lineage revealed patterns that extended beyond Patricia's individual behavior into cultural expectations about maternal authority and family hierarchy that discouraged questioning or accountability. Patricia had inherited these dynamics from her own mother and refined them through decades of practice, creating increasingly sophisticated methods for maintaining control while avoiding consequences for harmful behavior. The financial secrecy that characterized Patricia's approach to family relationships reflected broader cultural problems regarding women's economic autonomy and the social expectations that shaped her generation's attitudes toward marriage, divorce, and financial independence. Her concealment of the sterling settlement income demonstrated how economic deception could be used to maintain psychological advantage, while avoiding accountability for resources and obligations. The social enablement systems that supported Patricia's manipulative behavior included community structures that rewarded apparent devotion and sacrifice, while failing to recognize or address the psychological costs of such arrangements on family members who became targets of controlling behavior. The church community, social circles, and extended family networks had all contributed to validating her persona while ignoring evidence of harmful manipulation. The legal framework gaps that allowed Patricia's deception to continue without consequences revealed systematic inadequacies in family law and financial disclosure requirements that enabled sophisticated manipulation while providing limited protection for victims of emotional abuse and financial fraud. The absence of effective accountability mechanisms had emboldened her increasingly aggressive behavior over time. The therapeutic resource limitations within our community reflected broader healthcare system inadequacies regarding family dysfunction and psychological abuse recognition that prevented early intervention and treatment of manipulation patterns before they escalated to destructive extremes. Mental health professionals had limited training in recognizing sophisticated emotional abuse disguised as family devotion. The educational system failures that had shaped multiple generations of family members included inadequate instruction regarding healthy relationship dynamics, emotional intelligence development, and psychological manipulation recognition that left individuals vulnerable to sophisticated control tactics. The absence of comprehensive life skills education had created knowledge gaps that enabled abuse patterns to continue unchallenged. The cultural gender expectations that influenced family role definitions created systematic disadvantages for women who attempted to establish independence and authority while providing cover for manipulative behavior disguised as traditional maternal concern and family dedication. These expectations had shaped Patricia's methods while constraining response options for her targets. The religious doctrine interpretations that emphasized forgiveness and family unity over accountability and justice created systematic barriers to addressing harmful behavior while providing theological justification for enabling manipulation and avoiding confrontation. The spiritual framework had been weaponized to prevent appropriate response to abuse. The economic dependency structures that characterized traditional family arrangements provided systematic advantages for individuals who controlled financial resources while creating vulnerability for those who depended on family support for security and stability. Patricia had exploited these dynamics while concealing the true sources of her economic power. The communication pattern dysfunctions that characterized family interactions included systematic suppression of authentic expression, strategic information control, and emotional manipulation disguised as caring concern that prevented honest relationship development and effective conflict resolution. These patterns had been normalized over generations, despite their psychological costs. The social isolation mechanisms that separated family members from external support systems included criticism of outside relationships, scheduling conflicts that prevented independent social development, and subtle discouragement of activities that might provide alternative perspectives on family dynamics. These tactics had systematically weakened resistance to manipulation while strengthening dependency. The boundary violation normalization that characterized family culture included acceptance of privacy invasion, property destruction, and emotional manipulation as expressions of family closeness, rather than recognizing these behaviors as harmful boundary violations that required accountability and correction. The normalization had prevented appropriate response to escalating abuse. The crisis escalation patterns that emerged during significant life events revealed systematic problems with family stress management and conflict resolution that enabled manipulation during vulnerable periods, while preventing healthy celebration and milestone acknowledgement. Wedding planning had become a battlefield rather than a collaborative celebration. The information warfare tactics that Patricia employed included selective truth-telling, strategic omission, creative reinterpretation, and outright deception that systematically distorted family understanding of reality, while preventing informed decision-making and authentic relationship development. The information control had created an alternate reality that served her interests. The emotional blackmail systems that governed family interactions included threat-based compliance motivation, guilt manipulation, and conditional love provision that prevented authentic relationship development while ensuring continued control over family members' choices and behaviors. These systems had replaced genuine affection with transactional emotional exchanges. The alliance manipulation strategies that Patricia employed included divide-and-conquer tactics, triangulation communication, and coalition building against designated family members that prevented unified resistance to her control while maintaining her position as the central authority figure. These strategies had systematically weakened family solidarity. The narrative control mechanisms that shaped family history and identity included selective memory emphasis, strategic story editing, and mythological construction that supported Patricia's authority while erasing evidence of her harmful behavior and the legitimate grievances of her targets. The controlled narratives had become accepted family truth despite their factual inaccuracies. The succession planning problems that emerged from Patricia's deception included distorted expectations about inheritance, financial resources, and family obligations that would create additional conflicts and disappointments when the truth about her sterling settlement was eventually revealed. The planning had been based on false assumptions about her financial circumstances. The accountability avoidance systems that protected Patricia from consequences included family loyalty expectations, conflict avoidance preferences, and reputation protection priorities that systematically prevented appropriate response to harmful behavior while enabling escalation of manipulation and abuse. The systems had created immunity from normal social consequences. The victim isolation strategies that separated targets from potential allies included criticism of support relationships, scheduling manipulation, and emotional punishment for seeking outside help that systematically weakened resistance while strengthening dependency on the manipulator's approval and resources. The isolation had prevented effective intervention and support. The gaslighting infrastructures that supported reality distortion included coordinated messaging, evidence suppression, and memory revision that systematically undermined targets' confidence in their own perceptions while strengthening belief in the manipulator's version of events. The infrastructure had created systematic doubt about authentic experience and memory. The financial control mechanisms that maintained economic dependency included resource withholding, conditional support provision, and hidden asset management that prevented economic independence, while ensuring continued vulnerability to manipulation and control. The mechanisms had created artificial dependency relationships. The social reputation management systems that protected Patricia's public image included strategic information control, damage control messaging, and victim credibility undermining that prevented public accountability while maintaining her social advantages and community influence. The systems had insulated her from normal social consequences. The legal system exploitation that enabled Patricia's continued deception included knowledge of disclosure loopholes, statute of limitations protections, and family law inadequacies that prevented effective intervention while providing cover for financial fraud and emotional abuse. The exploitation had demonstrated sophisticated understanding of system weaknesses. The therapeutic system failures that prevented effective intervention included inadequate training in manipulation recognition, cultural bias toward family preservation, and limited understanding of sophisticated emotional abuse that enabled continued harm while preventing appropriate treatment and protection. The failures had left victims without adequate professional support. The educational system gaps that prevented manipulation recognition included inadequate emotional intelligence instruction, limited relationship dynamics education, and insufficient critical thinking development that left individuals vulnerable to sophisticated control tactics while preventing effective resistance and recovery. The gaps had created systematic vulnerability. The cultural change resistance that protected dysfunctional systems included tradition valorization, authority deference expectations, and change stigmatization that prevented necessary evolution of family dynamics while protecting harmful power structures and enabling continued abuse. The resistance had prevented healthy adaptation and growth. The intergenerational trauma transmission that perpetuated harmful patterns included normalized dysfunction, learned helplessness, and survival strategy adoption that passed manipulation techniques and victim behaviors to subsequent generations while preventing healing and healthy relationship development. The transmission had created cyclical abuse patterns. The community enablement structures that supported manipulation included social validation of apparent devotion, conflict avoidance preferences, and intervention hesitancy that provided external support for harmful behavior while preventing community accountability and protection for victims. The structures had created social immunity for sophisticated manipulators. The recovery resource limitations that prevented effective healing included limited access to specialized therapy, inadequate financial support for independence, and insufficient legal protection that maintained victim vulnerability while preventing escape from abusive situations and development of healthy relationships. The limitations had trapped victims in harmful situations. The justice system inadequacies that prevented appropriate consequences included limited recognition of emotional abuse, inadequate financial fraud prosecution, and insufficient family violence understanding that enabled continued harm while preventing effective intervention and accountability. The inadequacies had created systematic impunity for sophisticated abuse. The social change requirements that would address these systematic problems included comprehensive education reform, legal framework enhancement, therapeutic resource expansion, and cultural attitude transformation that would create effective prevention and intervention while providing appropriate consequences for harmful behavior. The requirements represented substantial social evolution needs. Understanding these systematic problems provided essential context for developing comprehensive responses that would address root causes rather than merely managing symptoms, while creating foundation for healthy family relationships and effective protection against future manipulation and abuse. The analysis revealed that individual courage and strategic action could catalyze broader systematic change that would benefit multiple generations. The psychological weight of maintaining composure while processing the magnitude of Patricia's betrayal began accumulating throughout the morning hours, as each new revelation about her deceptive behavior added additional layers of complexity to an already overwhelming situation. The emotional demands of managing wedding day logistics while simultaneously planning strategic justice required unprecedented levels of mental focus and emotional regulation that tested the boundaries of my resilience and coping capabilities. The time constraints that governed both wedding preparation and response planning created relentless pressure, as every passing minute reduced available options while increasing the risk that Patricia might discover her compromised secret or implement additional sabotage efforts. The compressed timeline demanded immediate decision-making without adequate reflection or consultation, forcing rapid strategic analysis and implementation under conditions that normally would require extensive deliberation and careful preparation. The financial implications of Patricia's dress destruction extended far beyond the immediate replacement costs to encompass broader questions about accountability, insurance coverage, legal recourse, and long-term relationship consequences that would influence family dynamics for years beyond our wedding celebration. The economic impact represented months of careful saving and financial sacrifice that could not be quickly or easily recovered through conventional means. The social expectations surrounding wedding day perfection created additional stress as family members, friends, and vendors anticipated flawless execution of carefully planned celebrations while remaining unaware of the crisis management requirements that had suddenly emerged. The pressure to maintain appearances while addressing fundamental betrayal demanded performance capabilities that exceeded normal human emotional processing capacity. The relationship strain that emerged from Patricia's attack began manifesting in subtle but significant ways, as Michael struggled to process his mother's destructive behavior while maintaining focus on our wedding celebration and managing his own emotional responses to family crisis. His internal conflict between loyalty obligations and relationship protection created tension that required careful navigation to prevent additional damage to our partnership. The professional obligations that continued despite personal crisis included vendor coordination, timeline management, and quality control responsibilities that could not be postponed or delegated, regardless of emotional circumstances. The necessity of maintaining professional demeanor while processing personal trauma demanded compartmentalization skills that required significant mental energy and focus. The physical manifestations of stress began emerging through tension headaches, digestive disruption, and sleep deprivation that compounded the cognitive challenges of strategic planning while reducing available energy and mental clarity needed for effective decision-making and implementation. The bodily responses to extreme stress threatened to undermine performance capabilities during critical decision-making periods. The social isolation that accompanied the discovery of Patricia's secrets created profound loneliness, as the knowledge burden could not be shared with support systems without risking premature disclosure or uncontrolled revelation that might compromise strategic objectives. The inability to seek counsel and emotional support intensified the psychological pressure while requiring complete self-reliance during an extraordinarily challenging period. The moral complexity that emerged from possessing evidence of Patricia's deception while planning strategic revelation created ethical dilemmas about appropriate response timing, family protection considerations, and accountability versus revenge motivations that required careful examination of values and objectives. The moral framework needed to support justice while maintaining personal integrity and relationship preservation where possible. The uncertainty factors that characterized the developing situation included unpredictable variables regarding Patricia's future behavior, family member reactions, vendor cooperation, legal implications, and long-term relationship consequences that made comprehensive planning extremely difficult, while requiring preparation for multiple scenarios simultaneously. The communication challenges that arose from managing information flow included determining appropriate disclosure timing, selecting suitable audiences, and maintaining message consistency while preventing premature revelation or uncontrolled information spread. The strategic communication requirements demanded sophisticated message management and audience analysis under severe time constraints. The venue coordination complications that emerged from the crisis included potential disruption of established timelines, additional security considerations, staff cooperation requirements, and contingency planning that might affect other wedding celebrations and vendor obligations. The operational implications required immediate attention while competing with emotional processing needs. The legal consultation pressures included determining whether to pursue criminal charges, civil litigation, or alternative dispute resolution approaches that would achieve accountability while managing family relationship preservation and public disclosure considerations. The legal decision-making required rapid assessment of complex options with long-term implications. The documentation requirements that supported both accountability efforts and personal protection included evidence preservation, witness identification, timeline establishment, and damage assessment that required systematic organization while maintaining security and confidentiality. The record-keeping demands competed with limited time and emotional resources. The family loyalty conflicts that intensified throughout the crisis included obligations to protect Michael from additional trauma while pursuing justice for destructive behavior, maintaining relationships with extended family members while addressing fundamental trust violations, and balancing forgiveness considerations with accountability requirements. The loyalty tensions created additional stress layers that complicated decision-making processes. The public image considerations that influenced response planning included potential media attention, social media documentation, community reputation implications, and professional consequence assessments that might affect career development and social relationships beyond immediate family circles. The public relations aspects required careful management to protect legitimate interests. The cultural pressure dimensions that shaped response options included generational expectations about family conflict management, religious teachings about forgiveness and justice, ethnic community values about family solidarity, and gender role expectations that might influence public perception and support availability. The cultural factors created additional complexity in strategic planning. The financial security concerns that accompanied the revelation planning included potential legal costs, replacement expense management, family support system stability, and economic independence considerations that might influence strategic timing and approach selection. The financial vulnerabilities required assessment and protection planning. The emotional support system limitations that characterized the situation included restricted access to counseling services, limited availability of trusted confidants, geographic separation from family support networks, and professional relationship boundaries that prevented full disclosure and support seeking. The isolation intensified psychological pressure while reducing coping resource availability. The wedding vendor coordination pressures included maintaining service quality standards while managing crisis communications, protecting vendor relationships from family conflict spillover, and ensuring contractual obligation fulfillment despite changing circumstances and potential disruption requirements. The professional relationship management demanded additional attention and energy. The timeline acceleration demands that emerged from crisis circumstances required completion of normal multi-day or multi-week processes within hours, while maintaining quality standards and attention to detail that would ensure successful outcomes. The compression created performance pressure that exceeded normal operational capabilities. The decision fatigue accumulation that resulted from continuous high-stakes choice-making throughout the crisis period began reducing cognitive effectiveness and increasing error probability at precisely the moments when decision quality was most critical for successful crisis resolution and justice achievement. The mental exhaustion threatened strategic capability degradation. The relationship protection requirements that accompanied justice planning included safeguarding Michael's emotional well-being, preserving valuable extended family connections, maintaining professional reputation integrity, and protecting future relationship development potential, where reconciliation might be possible or beneficial. The protection considerations required careful balance with accountability objectives. The truth management complexities that characterized the situation included determining appropriate disclosure levels for different audiences, timing revelation for maximum impact and minimum collateral damage, and maintaining accuracy while managing emotional impact on various stakeholders. The truth-telling requirements demanded sophisticated judgment and communication skills. The accountability mechanism selection pressures included choosing between private confrontation, public exposure, legal action, or alternative dispute resolution approaches that would achieve appropriate consequences while managing relationship preservation and community impact considerations. The mechanism selection required strategic analysis of effectiveness and proportionality. The personal transformation pressures that accompanied the crisis included rapid identity adjustment from wedding planning focus to crisis management leadership, emotional processing acceleration, and capability development under extreme circumstances that demanded growth and adaptation beyond normal developmental timelines. The transformation requirements created additional psychological stress. The justice system navigation complexities that might emerge from accountability efforts included understanding legal procedure requirements, evidence presentation standards, court system timelines, and enforcement mechanism limitations that could influence strategy selection and outcome expectations. The system complexity created additional learning and planning requirements. The community impact assessment needs that influenced response planning included potential consequences for church relationships, neighborhood dynamics, professional network effects, and extended social circle reactions that might create long-term implications beyond immediate family considerations. The community factors required careful evaluation and planning. The legacy consideration pressures that accompanied decision-making included determining what example to set for future family generations, how to establish healthy precedents for conflict resolution, and what lessons to provide about standing up to manipulation while maintaining family values and relationship priorities. The legacy implications added weight to every decision and action. The mounting pressure from all these converging factors created an unprecedented challenge that required drawing upon every resource, capability, and support system available, while maintaining focus on both immediate crisis resolution and long-term relationship health. The accumulating stress tested the limits of human resilience while demanding peak performance during the most important day of my life. The transformation from victim to strategic leader occurred under conditions that would have overwhelmed many individuals, demonstrating that extreme circumstances can reveal hidden strengths and capabilities that emerge when survival and justice depend upon rising to meet extraordinary challenges. The confirmation I desperately needed regarding Patricia's destructive behavior and my own perceptions of reality began arriving through unexpected sources throughout the afternoon, as individuals who had witnessed her patterns of manipulation started emerging from their silence to provide crucial validation and support. These external perspectives transformed my understanding from isolated victim experience to documented pattern recognition that provided both emotional healing and strategic advantage for addressing her systematic abuse. Elena Vasquez arrived at Meadowbrook Estate within an hour of my urgent phone call, her professional composure barely concealing the outrage and disbelief that characterized her response to learning about the deliberate destruction of the wedding dress she had spent months creating with meticulous attention to detail and artistic vision. Her reaction provided immediate validation that Patricia's behavior exceeded normal family conflict and constituted genuine violation of creative work and personal property. The seamstress examined the remnants of fabric, pearl beading, and lace appliques scattered throughout the bridal suite, with the methodical precision of a forensic investigator documenting crime scene evidence. Her professional assessment confirmed that the destruction had been systematic and deliberate, rather than accidental or emotional outburst, requiring significant time investment and specific tools that Patricia must have brought specifically for destructive purposes. Elena's documentation process included detailed photographs of the damaged materials, inventory assessment of salvageable components, and professional opinion regarding the malicious intent demonstrated through the pattern and thoroughness of destruction. Her expert testimony would provide crucial credibility for any legal proceedings, while establishing the financial and artistic value of what Patricia had destroyed through her calculated attack. The seamstress revealed additional information about Patricia's previous inquiries regarding the dress design and construction timeline that demonstrated premeditation rather than spontaneous destructive behavior. Patricia had contacted Elena's studio multiple times during the creation process under the guise of checking on progress and quality assurance, but her questions had focused on construction details and structural vulnerabilities that now appeared calculated to enable effective destruction. Thomas Whitman's unexpected arrival at the venue represented another crucial source of external validation, as his diplomatic facade finally cracked under the weight of witnessing Patricia's escalated behavior and its impact on his son's wedding celebration. His private conversation with me revealed decades of suppressed observations about his ex-wife's manipulative patterns and controlling behavior that he had avoided confronting to maintain family stability. Thomas provided detailed context about Patricia's behavior during their marriage that included systematic emotional manipulation, financial deception, and boundary violations that had ultimately contributed to their divorce, despite his efforts to maintain family unity for Michael's benefit. His testimony revealed that Patricia's current behavior represented escalation of long-standing patterns rather than recent personality changes or stress-related incidents. The revelation about Robert Sterling's presence during family gatherings throughout Michael's childhood provided additional validation for the timeline and deception scope, while confirming that Patricia's capacity for elaborate lies and systematic manipulation had been consistently demonstrated over decades. Thomas had suspected the romantic relationship, but chosen to avoid confrontation to prevent additional family disruption. Margaret, Patricia's sister, arrived at the venue in response to Thomas's phone call and provided perhaps the most damaging external validation through her reluctant admission that family members had long recognized Patricia's controlling behavior and manipulative tendencies, while choosing to enable, rather than confront these patterns to maintain family peace and avoid becoming targets themselves. Margaret's private disclosure included specific examples of Patricia's financial deception within extended family relationships, her systematic undermining of other family members, relationships and achievements, and her pattern of creating crises to maintain attention and control during significant family events. The sisters' testimony revealed that multiple family members possessed evidence of harmful behavior patterns. The extended family's conspiracy of silence had enabled Patricia's increasingly aggressive manipulation while protecting family members from direct confrontation with her vindictive responses to perceived challenges or threats to her authority. Margaret expressed guilt about allowing the behavior to continue without intervention, while acknowledging fear of becoming Patricia's next target if she spoke out against the systematic abuse. David, Margaret's husband, provided business perspective on Patricia's financial deception through his professional background in estate planning and family financial management. His analysis of the Sterling settlement implications revealed sophisticated tax avoidance strategies and asset concealment techniques that demonstrated Patricia's calculated approach to financial manipulation and her understanding of legal loopholes that enabled continued deception. The venue coordinator Sarah Mitchell provided professional validation through her extensive experience managing difficult family dynamics during wedding celebrations, confirming that Patricia's behavior exceeded normal family stress responses and represented calculated interference designed to disrupt and control rather than support and celebrate. Her professional assessment would carry significant weight with legal authorities if formal complaints were filed. Sarah revealed additional incidents throughout the morning that demonstrated Patricia's systematic approach to disruption, including attempts to access other areas of the venue without authorization, demands for vendor contact information to make unauthorized changes, and threats to terminate contracts if her specific requirements were not accommodated immediately. The pattern revealed comprehensive sabotage planning rather than emotional reaction. The photography team provided crucial documentation of Patricia's behavior through candid images captured during vendor setup and preparation activities that revealed her aggressive demeanor, surveillance activities, and interaction patterns with staff members. The photographic evidence would provide objective documentation of behavior patterns that supported accountability efforts. Jonathan, Margaret's son, provided generational perspective on Patricia's manipulation techniques through his observations as a young adult who had maintained emotional distance from family dynamics while documenting concerning behavior patterns through social media posts and private communications. His external perspective validated the systematic nature of manipulation while providing evidence of pattern recognition among younger family members. The florist Maria Santos revealed Patricia's attempts to change floral arrangements without authorization while making disparaging comments about the quality and appropriateness of selections that I had made during months of careful planning and vendor coordination. Her professional perspective confirmed that Patricia's criticism was unfounded and designed to create doubt rather than improve quality. The musician coordinator provided testimony about Patricia's demands for specific musical selections that reflected her preferences, rather than our carefully planned ceremony and reception entertainment that had been customized to reflect our relationship history and cultural backgrounds. Her interference revealed systematic attempts to control all aspects of our celebration rather than respect our autonomy and preferences. The catering manager disclosed Patricia's attempts to modify menu selections without consultation, while criticizing food choices as inappropriate for family gatherings and inadequate for guest expectations. The attempted changes would have significantly increased costs while reflecting Patricia's taste preferences, rather than our carefully planned celebration menu that accommodated diverse dietary requirements and cultural considerations. The security personnel provided professional assessment of Patricia's behavior patterns throughout the morning that included surveillance activities, unauthorized access attempts, and aggressive interactions with staff members that exceeded normal family involvement in wedding preparations. Their observations supported documentation of systematic interference and potential criminal behavior. The makeup artist who had been scheduled to provide bridal preparation services arrived to discover the dress destruction and provided emotional support, while documenting the psychological impact of Patricia's attack on wedding day preparation and celebration anticipation. Her professional perspective on the emotional trauma would support any therapeutic intervention requirements or legal proceedings addressing psychological harm. The legal consultation that I initiated through emergency contact with family attorney Jennifer Park provided immediate validation that Patricia's behavior constituted potential criminal charges including destruction of property, harassment, and possibly fraud depending on the financial deception scope revealed through the Sterling settlement documentation. The legal perspective confirmed that accountability options existed beyond family conflict resolution. The church community connections that I activated through confidential consultation with our minister provided spiritual guidance and moral support, while confirming that Patricia's behavior violated fundamental principles of family respect and wedding celebration sanctity that transcended religious denomination boundaries. The spiritual validation supported moral authority for accountability efforts. The academic perspective provided through consultation with Michael's former college psychology professor offered professional assessment of manipulation patterns and abuse dynamics that positioned Patricia's behavior within established psychological frameworks for understanding systematic emotional abuse and family dysfunction. The academic validation provided scientific foundation for intervention strategies. The workplace connections that I activated through confidential consultation with trusted colleagues provided practical advice about crisis management, reputation protection, and strategic communication that would minimize professional consequences while maximizing personal empowerment and accountability achievement. The professional perspective supported career protection during family crisis. The community connections that emerged through neighborhood relationships and social networks provided additional testimony about Patricia's public behavior patterns that contradicted her carefully constructed persona of devoted family matriarch and moral authority. The community perspective revealed systematic deception that extended beyond family relationships into broader social manipulation. The medical consultation that I sought through emergency contact with my healthcare provider offered professional assessment of stress management requirements and psychological trauma intervention needs that would support healing and recovery while providing documentation of harm for any legal proceedings, addressing emotional damages and therapeutic costs. The financial advisor consultation that I initiated through emergency contact with our estate planning attorney provided professional assessment of the Sterling settlement implications for family financial planning and inheritance expectations, while offering guidance about protecting our interests during potential family conflict escalation and legal proceedings. The therapeutic consultation that I arranged through emergency contact with a family counseling specialist provided immediate crisis intervention support while offering professional assessment of relationship dynamics and healing requirements that would address both immediate trauma and long-term recovery needs for all affected family members. The validation accumulation throughout the afternoon transformed my perspective from isolated victim experience to supported survivor with extensive evidence and professional backing for accountability efforts, while providing emotional healing and confidence restoration that enabled strategic planning and effective implementation of justice measures. The external confirmation that Patricia's behavior represented systematic abuse rather than family conflict created moral authority and practical foundation for comprehensive response that would address both immediate accountability and long-term protection requirements while providing example and precedent for future family relationship standards and conflict resolution approaches. The precise moment when everything crystallized occurred at 3:47 in the afternoon as I stood in Patricia's guest bedroom, surrounded by the evidence of her decades-long deception, while the accumulated weight of external validation and systematic understanding suddenly coalesced into absolute clarity about both the nature of her manipulation and the scope of response that justice demanded. The transformation from confusion and victimhood to strategic certainty happened with the sudden force of revelation that illuminated not only Patricia's true character but also my own capabilities and obligations. The physical sensation accompanying this moment of clarity included immediate relief from the psychological pressure that had been building throughout the day, as uncertainty about appropriate response gave way to confident understanding of necessary action. The mental fog that had characterized my emotional processing since discovering the destroyed dress lifted completely, revealing strategic pathways and implementation approaches with unprecedented clarity and precision. The realization that Patricia's attack represented the culmination of a sophisticated campaign designed to destroy my confidence and eliminate my presence from the family structure provided essential context for understanding both the magnitude of her manipulation and the comprehensive nature of response required to achieve lasting protection and accountability. Her behavior was not random cruelty, but calculated warfare that demanded strategic rather than emotional response. The understanding that my professional capabilities in strategic analysis, project management, and crisis resolution provided exactly the skill set required for effective response to Patricia's manipulation transformed my perspective from helpless victim to equipped strategist, with significant advantages over my opponent. The clarity revealed that I possessed superior analytical capabilities and moral authority that created favorable conditions for achieving justice. The recognition that Patricia's secret marriage and hidden financial resources represented not only evidence of her deception, but also the perfect instrument for delivering proportionate consequences, established the foundation for strategic planning that would transform her weapon of humiliation into the mechanism of her defeat. The poetic justice potential provided both practical leverage and emotional satisfaction. The comprehension that Michael's well-being depended not on protecting him from uncomfortable truths about his mother, but rather on liberating him from the systematic manipulation that had shaped his understanding of family relationships throughout his life, created moral imperative for action that transcended personal grievance to encompass broader healing and protection objectives. The awareness that multiple family members had been living under the influence of Patricia's deception while lacking the evidence and courage necessary to challenge her authority positioned me as the catalyst for collective liberation rather than individual revenge. The responsibility extended beyond personal justice to include family healing and protection of future generations from similar manipulation. The insight that community validation and professional support had already established comprehensive foundation for accountability efforts while providing protection against retaliation demonstrated that strategic conditions were optimal for decisive action. The external support network created favorable circumstances that might not be available if response was delayed or avoided. The perception that Patricia's escalation to property destruction represented crossing of boundaries that required immediate and decisive response to prevent further escalation and establish clear consequences for harmful behavior. The pattern analysis revealed that passive response would be interpreted as weakness and invitation for additional attacks rather than conflict de-escalation. The consciousness that the wedding day context provided unique opportunity for dramatic revelation that would ensure maximum witness participation while creating permanent documentation of accountability that could not be subsequently denied or minimized. The timing and setting offered strategic advantages that would not be replicated in conventional confrontation scenarios. The discernment that legal and therapeutic resources were available to support both immediate crisis resolution and long-term healing processes provided confidence that comprehensive intervention could be implemented without sacrificing family relationships or personal well-being. The professional support network created foundation for sustainable resolution rather than temporary victory. The recognition that financial security considerations did not require continued tolerance of abuse, since alternative resources and support systems were available through professional networks and independent relationships that Patricia could not control or manipulate. The economic independence options provided freedom for principled action without compromising practical security. The understanding that cultural and religious expectations about family harmony and conflict avoidance had been weaponized by Patricia to prevent accountability while enabling continued abuse created obligation to challenge these dynamics for the benefit of current and future family members who deserved authentic relationships based on mutual respect rather than manipulation and control. The realization that personal transformation from victim to empowered advocate would provide example and inspiration for others facing similar challenges, while demonstrating that sophisticated manipulation could be successfully challenged through strategic thinking and courageous action. The broader impact potential provided additional motivation beyond personal justice considerations. The clarity about timeline requirements revealed that immediate action was necessary to capitalize on optimal conditions, while preventing Patricia from discovering her compromised position and implementing defensive measures that might complicate accountability efforts. The window of opportunity demanded decisive action without additional delay or preparation time. The insight that evidence preservation and strategic revelation required sophisticated coordination between multiple parties while maintaining security and surprise elements created implementation challenges that demanded immediate attention and careful execution. The operational complexity required systematic planning and resource allocation to ensure a successful outcome. The understanding that relationship preservation objectives could be achieved through transparent communication and authentic behavior, while establishing appropriate boundaries and accountability measures, provided framework for balancing justice requirements with healing and reconciliation potential, where relationships warranted continuation. The recognition that professional reputation protection required careful management of public disclosure and community communication to maintain credibility and respect while achieving accountability objectives created additional planning requirements that needed immediate attention and strategic consideration. The awareness that therapeutic intervention requirements would include both immediate crisis support and long-term healing processes for all affected family members provided framework for comprehensive recovery planning that addressed psychological trauma while supporting relationship reconstruction where appropriate and possible. The perception that legal consultation requirements included both protective measures and accountability options that could provide appropriate consequences, while protecting against retaliation and ensuring compliance with disclosure obligations and evidence preservation requirements. The legal framework provided both protection and enforcement mechanisms. The comprehension that financial implications extended beyond immediate costs to include long-term security considerations, inheritance planning adjustments, and family support system modifications that would require careful analysis and strategic planning to protect legitimate interests while establishing appropriate accountability. The insight that community impact considerations included reputation management, relationship preservation, and social network maintenance that could be achieved through authentic communication and principled behavior, while demonstrating commitment to justice and accountability over conflict avoidance and manipulation enablement. The realization that educational value inherent in standing up to sophisticated manipulation could benefit multiple individuals and families facing similar challenges while contributing to broader social understanding of emotional abuse patterns and effective intervention strategies. The teaching potential provided additional purpose beyond personal justice. The clarity about moral authority derived from authentic behavior, evidence-based positions, and principled action created confidence that accountability efforts would be supported by reasonable individuals, while opposition would primarily emerge from those invested in maintaining dysfunctional systems that enabled manipulation and abuse. The understanding that strategic communication requirements included message consistency, audience analysis, and timing coordination that would maximize impact while minimizing collateral damage and preserving relationships that warranted continuation. The communication strategy needed sophisticated planning and careful execution. The recognition that implementation timeline required coordination between dress preparation, evidence preservation, witness preparation, and revelation planning that would achieve maximum impact while maintaining celebration quality and family well-being considerations. The logistics demanded systematic coordination and precise timing. The awareness that psychological preparation requirements included emotional regulation, stress management, and confidence building that would enable effective performance under pressure while maintaining composure and strategic thinking throughout confrontation and revelation processes. The mental preparation needed immediate attention and systematic approach. The insight that success measurement criteria included immediate accountability achievement, long-term relationship improvement, family healing progress, and personal empowerment demonstration that would validate the intervention while providing foundation for continued growth and positive family dynamics. The outcome assessment required comprehensive evaluation framework. The comprehension that legacy implications included example setting for future generations, precedent establishment for family conflict resolution, and demonstration that sophisticated manipulation could be successfully challenged through strategic thinking and principled action. The long-term impact provided motivation that transcended immediate circumstances. The moment of absolute clarity transformed every aspect of my understanding about the situation, while providing complete confidence in both the necessity and feasibility of comprehensive response that would achieve justice, while protecting relationships and establishing healthy precedents for future family interactions. The transformation from uncertainty to strategic certainty enabled immediate action planning and implementation preparation that would fundamentally alter family dynamics while demonstrating that authenticity and courage ultimately triumph over deception and manipulation when supported by strategic thinking and moral authority. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.